So let's see what's going on with new construction here. So we have these, this is how many, we've seen construction pick up, so that's dwellings under construction per 1,000 people, and we'll talk about types and where they are and all that type of stuff. So here's Ontario. Net population growth, which we talked about in 2-year segments, and then there's the housing completions. You see how after 2016 population growth jumped? You see again how housing completions didn't? That's the problem, right? That's where we are. Like it's so clear what's been going on. Nothing's moving here. Here's another way to look at it. Again, there's 2016. This is household formation. So this is actually even more interesting than just the raw population numbers, because this is when you look at like what would be considered household formation. So that's really living units, right? Because there could be 3 people, 2 people, whatever, that live in one house, so it's a little bit more interesting. Household formations jumped, housing didn't move. Right? That's the household formations. Again, it went down for the COVID period, and then there's the completions. So we haven't been building enough. This is really insightful from Mike Moffat here. So you know how the government came out last year and they said, okay, we got these big plans. We're going to build a bunch of housing and we're going to fix this. And in 10 years, we're going to build 1.5 million homes. So the red line at the top, that's their target. That's how many homes they're going to build. The pink line is half. That's half. The blue line in the middle is how many homes we've built in Ontario from 1957 to 2020 on a yearly basis. So the announcement sounds really good. We're going to fix this problem. We're going to build all these homes. Except no one's been able to ask me, and I've asked people, I'm like, hey, we ask developers that we know, we ask builders, we'll ask anyone in the industry. We're like, hey, do you see, like, how are they going to build this many homes? Like, what do you mean? No way. Like, it's like, just no way. Last year when Peter Politis was here from Greybrook, we had him and we were talking about some of these stats, and they work with a lot of the biggest developers in Toronto. They said, even if you could get us approvals, and then he goes, that's part of the problem. Then if you could get us the material, which is another part of the problem, who's going to build them? We have no workers. He's like, well, there's one problem layered on top of another. He's like, we can't build these homes in 10 years, but yet they say they're going to build them. But the reality is it just seems very, very unlikely. Yeah, that was from Mike. We've never built more than 850,000 homes in a 10-year period. The high water mark was 1969 to 1978. And we've got to remember that, because here's that high water mark period that he talked about. That's where he was saying the high water mark when we built the most. Now, what was interesting during this time is this yellow part. This is apartments. But at this time, we were building high-rise rental housing in the city of Toronto. The vast majority of rental housing in the city of Toronto was 40 years old, 40 or more. Right? We were building apartments at that time. So that's great. We were building some rental housing and stuff, so we had lots of units coming on. But at the same time, we weren't really digging into the single-family stock that we were building. That stayed pretty even. So we had the apartments being built, and then we had just, the single-family kept chugging along. But then what happened over time is we've kind of changed. We had a little boom in single-family, but now here's what's happening now. See the growth in the yellow towards the end there? That's high-rises. That's condos. See this? This is single family. We're not building single family anymore. We're building condos. So the units are coming from high-rise units. They're not coming from low-rise. This is exactly why what Craig was talking about with laneway housing, that type of stuff. It's exactly why that is a big opportunity for a lot of people that have properties in the city, and for a lot of people that have properties in other cities to do second suites, garden suites, all that type of thing that we've talked about before. Because the low-rise construction is not keeping up with demand. It's actually falling further behind. If we just talk about housing units, then we're talking primarily about the growth in the condo sector in major cities versus the low-rise stuff. Right? And now what we're seeing with the economic headwinds, high interest rates, no one likes you think we don't like high interest rates? Think about if you're building a building and you had $100 million, you got $100 million financing. You don't like high interest rates either. So what's happening is the annual pace of housing starts is actually starting to slow. Rental construction, the purpose-built rental construction in the GTA fell 54% last year. We had this big spike, it's now falling. We're not getting the rentals, right? Bray is the Altus Group guy. He says he doesn't believe it's achievable because developers' costs are too steep. It takes too long for new housing to be approved and built, and higher interest rates. 33% of developers were pausing new projects in August, 33%. That number rose to 73% by November. So they talk about fixing this housing problem, but then at the same time, they're trying to raise interest rates, and the developers are like, well, no, hold on. Well, I'm not going to do this. People aren't building new rental construction when they have to borrow at these rates because the numbers don't work the same. So they're backing off. So the supply that was supposed to come on the market isn't coming on the market. There's 50,000 units expected to be completed this year, 30,000 in 2024, which isn't going to change very fast because the construction would have to start like months ago for it to work, right? 20,000 in 2025 and 13,000 in 2026. We're just kicking the can down the road. Here's part of the problem. Look at Ontario. Toronto's at the bottom here. Oh, you can. I thought I had an arrow. Toronto's at the bottom. 32 months average approval timelines by municipality, the longest out of any major city in Canada. 32 months. So if we said, okay, we got a piece of land today, we're going to build a new apartment, right? It might take on average, could take less, 32 months. Doug Ford's trying to change that, but that's the problem. Here's our Ontario planning legislation from 2010. See the small one at the bottom? That's 2010. See the one that's more than double the size above it? That's 2020. No wonder it takes 32 months. No one even understands what the hell's in there. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So they're talking out of one side of their mouth that all the supply is coming, we're going to make all these changes, but nothing's really happening. So this is the type of stuff that we like to follow so that we can understand, hey, what is happening in the real estate market? Prices have come down in the last year. Do we need to be concerned? What's happening? We've got to look further to see what's happening with these long-term trends. This is why we understand this. And now the government's turning to us. They're saying, oh, the government can't solve the housing issues. The private sector must be involved. That's what has to happen now. Do you remember, like it was, what was it, last year? 2 years ago. It was probably 2 years ago. Us as real estate investors, we were the bad guys. They were Bank of Canada, CMHC. They said, you know whose fault this is? It's the real estate investors' fault. They're buying properties, and it's their fault that we're in this situation. And now they're turning to us and they're like, you know who should help us? The real estate investors. What the? Can you make this? You can't make this stuff up.